we're going to be talking about is biological evolution. She gave me 2 probes to work with. I chose this one because the other one was about bugs and stuff, and that was just getting a little too complicated. So y'all can have a look at that, because she didn't print us off copies to give to everybody. And think about that with each other.
I think maybe pass, because it might include both how life started, biological life.
I was thinking either Paz or Mario.
You want to know what the correct answer is?
Yeah.
Cameron.
Dang.
Just because it explains that living things share common ancestors, and scientists seek to understand how life started. So what do you guys think biological evolution is? If you had to define it in your own words.
We define what biological evolution is. The study of life over a period of time.
It's
study
kind
of life.
Yeah.
Or how organisms change over time.
Just like
life.
what else? Like, not like an organism, but this can be related to another topic that we talk a lot about in class.
Adaptation.
That's what I was saying.
Kind of like, okay. So biological evolution is basically a genetic change that occurs in a population over time. And it's like natural selection.
So, I mean, I was, like, on the right track.
Yeah,
with
you were
Mario.
definitely on the right track.
Okay, so like
You're doing
biological
good.
evolution happens because of an adaptation.
Mhm.
Is that how it is? It's like the
Yep.
effect of natural selection
That's exactly
happening. It's
Mhm.
Okay.
Making connections.
Okay.
This probe is great. However, this probe is meant for high school students. So I definitely recommend like taking it down a little bit.
Considering we struggle with it, yeah.
It's a hard one to wrap your head around. For elementary students, they're basically going to focus on a knowledge base of biology and different things, but they're not going to go in depth with it as much as you will when you get in middle school and high school. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was, why do you think it is important to have biological evolution? Just like it's important to have natural selection.
For survival.
Why? For survival. What about you?
I'd say for survival too, for the best like outcome.
Then, let's see. Have you heard of biological evolution before? Because if I'm being honest, I hadn't. So when I looked at this, I was like, oh, snap.
I've heard the word before, but I've never really actually learned about it.
Because when I was doing research about it, like I told Dr. Lee, when you search biological evolution, natural selection pops up everywhere. Because they're so intertwined that it's hard to search for one
without the other.
Yeah, so I learned that biological evolution has 2 parts. There's micro and there's macro. And they're each one's a specific species and then another one's the wide variety. So I know that biological evolution is just about the diversity of life, which is awesome. Life is great. Then here's a fun question. You should know the answer to this. Who is the person who came up with the theory of natural selection?
Darwin.
They're geniuses. How would you get your students to talk about this topic? And be open about it?
Meaning how an activity you would do?
Yeah,
or
you could
just
do different activities, but also with this, the science talk, Dr. Lee wants us to be able to communicate with each other and kind of work as backboards for each other. So I can ask you a question and then you think of an idea and then you bounce it off you and then we just have this open communication going. And I think that's good for your classroom too, because if your kids are afraid to ask questions because you're going to tell them they're stupid or that they're, like, I had a teacher in elementary school who said there's no such thing as a stupid question. But if you asked, but if you asked a question and she didn't like it, she'd be like, I'm not answering that. You should already know the answer. So, therefore, labeling my question as a stupid question. So I think we have to work on having that open communication with our students and letting them know that it's okay to not know everything. Because I didn't know this. I didn't know about this until I had to do research about it. And I'm still not 100% clear, but that's okay. Yeah. And I think that's important for students to know that it's okay not to be okay. I'm pretty sure that's a song.
Another thing is, like, you know how in some classes you can relate, like, a real life situation to what they're learning? Like, oh, well, like, if you're teaching bullying, you can, like, act out bullying and then have that. You can't really act this out. You can't really indirectly teach this and have students learn this without actually, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, discussion really is important for that, too. Like, like you said, like, there's not really, I don't know, you could do activities and stuff like that, but you have to actually teach, like, this specific, there's no indirect way to teach those skills, I guess.
I completely agree. It's hard to, like, if you as a teacher are struggling to wrap your mind around a topic, just imagine how that's going to be for your students. I mean, if you can't fully grasp it, you can't expect your students to grasp something that you yourself don't even get. But if they do, that's great, because then not only are you teaching them what you know, but you're learning what they know. So you're learning from them, which is great. But, like, I kept going back to natural selection, and I was like, okay, what can I teach them? Like, what do they know? What are their, like, you have to look up their misconceptions. And, which brings me to my next question. Do you think natural selection means, like, an organism is trying to adapt?
No.
And that's a common misconception with children. Like, sometimes they think natural selection means that you yourself are trying to adapt.
But you can't try
to adapt. Like, you can't force yourself. They don't understand that
it's random.
Like, for me, I always use this as an example. I'm plus size, so I wish my body could burn off what I eat, and then I would be skinny, and I wouldn't have to worry about it. I could eat cake all day, and it'd be cool, because my body would work that off. But it doesn't work that way. And a lot of kids are like, well, if I don't like peas, I can tell my mom that I'm allergic to peas because my body just doesn't want it. Your body's not going to become allergic to something because you don't like it. It's not how it works.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to set that up. Also, they think that natural selection changes your body over time, but to fit the needs that you specifically want. So, for instance, like, over time, my body is going to work off that cake because that's what I want it to do. So that's what they think it happens, and it's not that way. Wish it could be that way, but it's not that way. And those are the two common misconceptions that I found when I was doing my research.
I feel like a reason why they have those misconceptions is because, like, I read somewhere that kids until the age of 12 they don't really understand the sense of, like, other people, like other people's emotions. They don't understand that other people feel the same way they do. They're very I don't want to say self-absorbed, but they don't understand other things. So, like, that's probably why they think that, like, I control this, nothing else controls me, I control myself.
Yeah.
They're in that mindset.
And their idea of time is completely crazy. Like, you could say, like, I'm going away for a while. And their while, yours could be 2 days. And they're like, why have you been gone 3 weeks? Like, it's been 2 days.
Yeah.
2 days. What are some examples that you could give to your kids to show natural selection, besides what we said already?
I like the pictures that Dr. Lee had showed us with the mice.
Yeah.
That really stood out to
really
me.
Good.
Of, like, how you could see they were, like, black at first, I think, and then all of a sudden how they adapted to their environment. Or, I guess, they didn't try to adapt. It happened over time. And, yeah, how they now, like, blended into their surroundings so well, especially, like, to help for survival from predators and stuff like that. So I thought that was really cool.
I think that video that she showed us really clicked for me. That's when I was like, okay, I'm understanding it. Because a lot of times, like, I understand what natural selection is, but I feel like you're not able to connect the dots as much as when you see a video or something that actually is like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if she's just telling you this is what's going to happen over a period of time, not showing pictures or anything, then I'm sitting in the dugout waiting for them to call me out. I'm like,
something actually when we were doing those word walls, it was like the mice is that's a trait that they have adapted, like, but I had structure and function of animals, and that, like, I really had to think about it but then I remembered, like, the duck feet evolving and, like, giraffe necks, like, that's something, like, because honestly, like, it was very hard for me to think about structure and function, so, like that, like, the mice would be a way to show, like, that adaptation of traits of natural selection, and then, like, maybe, like, giraffe necks would show, like,
it's really hard to wrap your head around something that you weren't a part of, if that makes sense. Like, we didn't grow up seeing a giraffe's neck change. It happened before we came, so it's hard to wrap your head around something that you weren't a part of. And I think that's hard for kids, so you have to show them something that's on their level, like mice. They know about mice. Mice are current. Mice aren't, like, growing long necks, but they're just there. Do you think that well, I already asked y'all that, if y'all thought those both were important. And then my last question is, do humans go through natural selection? Because a lot of kids get this confused too.
Yes.
Yes, we do. A lot of people don't think we do. Like, they just think we are what we are, and that's it. But we do. We go through, like, I put on, when I submitted this, like, not that I necessarily believe this, but as a scientist, at one point, we were monkeys. So, obviously, we're not ah, and all over the place. We have adapted in that way. And then there's many different ways that we have adapted. Can y'all name some? This is hard.
Well, I feel like just almost like on a simpler level, our bodies will just adapt. Like, if I, like, for example, I'm not from around here, so I am not used to humidity at all. Like, I step out for 2 seconds and I'm dripping sweat while Morgan could be standing next to me and she's completely fine because she's lived here for a longer period of time, so her body's adapted to the climate and is used to the way that the climate is here, as opposed to me, where what I've lived is always dry climate. So there is no humidity, there is nothing like that. So for me, my body's trying to adapt to this new climate of, one, the cold during winter, and then two, humidity just like during the summertime and stuff like that. So I think that's just a way, is just our body can adapt. I don't know if that's like
that's
a good example, but
another one is skin color. And a lot of people don't think about it. But if you notice that people who are from Mexico, their skin's darker because they're closer to, well, not good. They're closer to the equator. So their skin needs to be darker so they don't get burnt. Just like white people, during the summer, we get darker so that way we don't get burnt. Because your skin...
Or you get burnt to get darker.
Yeah, you get burnt to get darker. Like, you have to have a way that your body adapts so that you don't cause harm to yourself.
I know this is, like, a crazy, like, thing to, like, mention, but, like, do you think that our bodies, like, internally have adapted to, like, the different, like, back, like, about, like, you know what I mean, 100 years ago, they were farming, living off the land, eating, like, plants and vegetables, and now we eat, like, fast food, like, processed food, like, foods we eat now are, like, terrible. Do you think our bodies are adapting to that, maybe, and maybe, like, future generations of humans will be able, their bodies will be able to break down all of that food better?
I hope so.
That was just like a if question.
Like, I mean, that's great.
You know what I mean?
It's a great
when I was
thing.
thinking about, like, how our skins have adapted and stuff like that, if our body cells can, like, what if our body could eventually adapt to breaking down that McDonald's and it being compared to us eating a salad now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
See, that's a
Because of
good
how
point
much
to
we
bring
eat.
up with your class. Like, talk about that. Make questions. Like, all kids should be comfortable asking questions like that. I mean, I don't necessarily know the answer. I hope that one day that
it's
will
like
happen.
a good thing to like talk
Yeah,
about. And
I
like,
mean, because it's interesting.
Mhm.
Will that happen?